Ornamental grasses add light and movement to a border, and they have an incredibly long season of interest, going from summer right through to autumn or fall, through the winter, and then you cut them down in the spring. But many of us are unsure how to use ornamental grasses in our borders. I'm certainly not very sure myself. It's Alexandra from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and I went down to see Paul Seaborne of Pelham Plants, who's got a cottage garden adjacent to the Pelham Plants nursery, and he is passionate about ornamental grasses, and he's shown me 6 different types of ornamental grasses, how you would position them and how you would look after them. These are all the major groups of ornamental grasses, and you may not have the specific variety that Paul shows in the video. However, you will have a variety available to you, and they're hardy across a wide range of zones and climates, so I'll put their hardiness up on screen. You're combining grasses with actually quite traditional sort of herbaceous planting. What would you advise people? People are quite nervous of using grasses, so what would you advise there?
I love using grasses. I've got so many through the garden. I love the textural change. For me, a border that is full of big flowers, maybe of similar structures, I find very crowded, and I like to just open up the border a bit. I personally think very carefully about where to use a grass, to the extent if I were designing a new border, I would probably choose the grass first. And I might choose an evergreen grass where I'm going to see it a lot or walk past it a lot in winter. I might choose something tall like Stipa gigantea where it's going to be backlit of an evening or a morning, and I might sit and see it just glowing as the sun sets. I might choose something pencil thin and narrow like Calamagrostis, Karl, Foerster as a punctuation through an otherwise soft or floppy border. Other grasses like the Hakonechloas or Pennisetums, I think, add texture and contrast to the brighter colours and foliage effects of other plants, and I think they calm it down, and it's very useful. I think it's almost like a sorbet between courses, that it just softens the entire look and doesn't make it too busy.
So if I wanted to grow a Stipa like this, what would I need to know?
Well, this is a wonderful form of Stipa gigantea called Golda fontana. It's a very tall form, very vigorous, always flowers at a young age. I recommend this for even the small garden or a small area of a garden, and contrary to people's expectations, just because it's tall doesn't mean to say it should be at the back. You'll see I've planted this on a corner. We literally have to brush past it. We have to climb through it almost, and there's a seating area where we look through it. So I want it near the front of a border. It's very versatile for almost any garden soil. It loves a sunny position. The seed heads are actually spent. There's no seeds on there anymore, but those spent cases of seeds will stay on right the way through the winter if I allow them. So you've got such a long season of interest from very early summer right the way through until the autumn. And I think it's such a versatile grass and makes such an impact. This one's about 5 or 6 years old. So you get a big evergreen dome of foliage and multiple flower stems each year. But it's well worth it, I think, to enjoy that on the corner of a border somewhere as a statement.
Is it very fragile? I mean, or it's fine. I mean,
No.
if your dog goes rushing past,
No, it's a really tough grass if given the right conditions. And we do get a lot of wind here, but you can see the thick stems can cope with that, no problem at all.
Okay, so this is a very famous grass, isn't it? So how would I use it in my garden?
Yeah, this is an incredibly important grass that designers use all the time. It's Calamagrostis acutiflora, Karl. It's known for its bolt upright habit, pencil narrow shape, and is really good for punctuation planting through a border. And this border I tend to view from one end or the other. There's a path running along it, and you're kind of walking between pillars almost in the garden. And actually, you've reminded me, originally I did have evergreen shrubby pillars in here, but I found that they dominated the border too much. They were too hungry, too thirsty, and actually to use the grass as a punctuation point, which is an equal match in hunger and thirst for the other herbaceous perennials, you can get that structural element punctuating through a border without the harshness of the evergreen shrub.
With this, like, is it Is it an evergreen? Do you cut it down to the ground in spring, or do you have to sort of filter it out?
Yeah, it does need cutting back, but rather like the Stipa gigantea, it's got an incredibly long season of interest. So there is foliage at the base that's evergreen. It would emerge and flower in early summer with a narrow pinky plume on the top. But that very quickly turns to a buff colour and goes straw-like through autumn into winter. It might start to collapse a little bit in the storms of winter, but it would generally stay upright until you cut it, and I cut it generally in spring just before the new growth emerges. So it's got an incredibly long season. You know, it's most of the summer. You've got something there to punctuate the garden.
And do you cut it right down to the base?
Yeah.
So it's really easy?
It's dead easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I use a hedge trimmer on a big clump. It's just,
Yeah.
and it's done.
So we have Miscanthus here. Now, if I was to put Miscanthus in my garden, what would your advice be?
Well, I don't want you to be put off because this looks enormous. This is one of my favourite parts of the garden. This is a Miscanthus called Yakushima Dwarf. It's a lovely compact height at about 4 foot. Is dwarfing for a Miscanthus. Some of them are very tall and upright. I've grown this as a hedge really to create a windbreak for the border. Unlike the hedges, which can dominate and drink a border dry, this is on equal par with all my tall perennials just on the other side. And of course we're now late summer and this looks fantastic. It's glowing, it's very tactile. Miscanthus is very versatile and very low maintenance. All you need to do is to cut it down to the ground at some point. I do mine in spring just before the regrowth starts, and you have a wonderful winter silhouette. Here I'm using it as a hedge, but that's quite unusual. On a smaller scale you could use it as a punctuation, a corner, as a statement almost. And you've got a Miscanthus sinensis of every height you could possibly need in the garden. There are some very miniature ones now, but there are some enormous tall ones. They generally would be considered a warm season grass, that is, they flower in the latter half of the year. But I think they make an incredible statement here in late summer.
Yeah, they're wonderful, absolutely. Now this is a really transparent grass, isn't it? In fact, people can probably hardly see it. So how would you use this in a garden?
Well, you can see here I've put it on a corner, so you have to brush past it. I want to use this to emphasise its transparency. It's actually called Molinia transparent. It's a cultivar that's known for its open waywardness, its see-through. You can see plants wherever you are. It doesn't block anything, it doesn't screen anything out. So it almost adds to the joy of the plants around. Molinias are quite versatile plants. They're a form of a native. This one is very tall. I think it looks best on the front edge because you can see through it and you can see everything. It doesn't create that barrier.
And in terms of looking after it, what sort of care does it need?
Again, almost no maintenance at all. What tends to happen in this garden with a Molinia is in autumn we get these beautiful butter yellow tones, and then the first really hard frost that we get in late autumn will shatter the stems and they'll just collapse, and then you just simply sweep it up and get ready for next year.
Yeah. So it's not a grass that takes you through winter, but it's fabulous for several months in the summer.
Exactly. There are other grasses that will provide you with better winter structure. This isn't one of them, but to get the freshness that you get, you need that vigour, you need the glossy green colour at this time of year, and you will enjoy the butter colour in autumn, but it will collapse and disappear in winter.
Yeah. And I think we need to look at Pennisetum, don't we?
We do.
Now, Pennisetum, now this is another really useful grass, isn't it? So tell me what we'd need to know if we had it in our garden.
Yeah, Pennisetum are beautiful, often called feather grasses or fountain grasses. There's a huge range of them. This one is a late summer flowering form. This is Pennisetum alopecuroides Black Beauty. You can see the darkness of the flowers just beginning to emerge, and you've got the pollen just appearing on there. We've timed it just right. Looks beautiful with a little bit of light rain on it, like today. This is a bit of a lump, this grass. It wants to be on the front edge or wants to dominate its position, and you need some soft planting around it. We've got a verbena that's popped up nearby. We've got crocosmias nearby. It needs good light, to encourage the flowering, but it also needs a good depth of soil. It can be quite a thirsty plant. But Pennisetum alipecuroides is a really good plant, a stocky, stout plant for a statement in late summer, early autumn.
And when it comes to, say, would most Pennisetums be like that, you know, want quite a lot of moisture and be a bit stocky? So if somebody hasn't got this particular variety, that's the sort of thing you would expect from a Pennisetum.
There's a number of different species from which varieties have been created that will suit almost any garden situation. We also grow here Pennisetum orientale hybrids, which flower earlier in the year. They'll flower in June and July. They cope much better with a lighter soil. They're less thirsty, less lumpy, much more easy to use in the middle of a border. Or you might go for something like Pennisetum villosum. Villosum means hairy, and you get these fluffy caterpillars and droopy shapes, and that can create quite a statement. And again, it's very versatile in where you can put it. And again, flowers earlier in the year. So you don't have to wait for an autumn grass like this one. There's often other grasses that will suit the position in your garden better.
And once again, looking after this, is it just to cut down once a year?
Yeah.
To the ground?
Yeah. A lot of these grasses are not evergreen. The ones we've discussed today all require being cut hard to the ground. I think in a very, very cold garden, I would consider with some of the grasses, not necessarily this one, but I would consider not cutting it too hard, too early, because that can let the frost into the core of the plant. But all of them is just a simple cut back, and a large plant like this I use a hedge trimmer.
I've got a grass which is an Ornamental lessoniana, the pheasant's tail grass, and that's, I think, semi-evergreen. Now, can I cut that right back to the base, or will that be a problem?
I wouldn't recommend it. That's one of the ones where you can weaken the entire grass by doing it. I leave that as almost an evergreen grass. It's got a beautiful autumn colour to it. If it starts to get a little bit scrappy, I might comb through it in autumn, and I either use gloves to do it by hand if it's a small plant, or you could even use a garden rake, and that will take out some of the thatch of the older leaves. If you were to cut it all off, you will weaken the entire plant. And there are a number of other grasses like that. There's a number in the Carex family that I wouldn't cut everything off. It could weaken the entire plant. It tends to be the deciduous ones. But don't forget, even though that sounds like you lose the grass, the benefit of having a deciduous grass is that you both have probably striking autumn colours that you wouldn't get with an evergreen, and you also get the lush, fresh growth in the spring. And I think that's one of the benefits of these grasses.
Well, I also think just cutting it down to the base in spring is a nice, easy thing to do, and I'm not sure
a lot easier
than combing through mine. So, Hakonechloa macra, which I love, I have never managed to grow. I think probably I'm overcrowding it when I plant it. But what do we need to know about Hakonechloa macra if we want to have it successful?
Yeah, I grow it quite successfully here in the garden, but I think the overcrowding issue is an important one. It's quite a soft, low-growing grass that wouldn't want to be dominated by other shade plants, I think. It's suited to shade. It comes from Japanese woodland. It needs a sheltered spot. I grow it here in the garden, behind a hedge, underneath a shrub, and it's very capable of coping with quite dry conditions. And the bright shade that it gets is very good for the foliage. It doesn't dry out. But I think if we allowed some of the other, perhaps ground cover plants to dominate it, foliage plants I've got here like astrantias or some of the ferns, if they shaded it out too much, it would weaken the plant. And actually, one of the best ways I find to grow the Hakonechloa is in pots. Because of the dry tolerance, it can survive in a large clay or metal planter for a long period of time and creates a wonderful, almost hair-like dome. And it's a very soft effect for a shady, sheltered corner in the garden.
Of course, while you're thinking about your border, it's probably a good idea to revisit the basic principles of how to create a beautiful border. So don't miss this video coming up next, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.